What is your I better get the FCK out of here now, because some shitty is about to go down story. My friends and I were in an In-N-Out Burger in LA about 10 years ago. We saw one guy go into the restroom, closely followed by about 8 more. Suddenly there was an incredible ruckus from the bathroom. Bodies slamming into the walls repeatedly. Sounds like sinks being torn off the walls. But no speaking or yelling whatsoever. Luckily, there was a security guard in the restaurant. He listened for a moment, stood up, and then jogged to his car and drove away. Needless to say, we didn't stick around to see what was going on in there. But it couldn't have been good. I laughed so hard at the image of the one guy whose job it is to keep the peace. Listening for a moment, realizing he isn't paid nearly enough for that shitty and just bailing. If security bails, it's definitely time to go. I was driving back to school after Thanksgiving break in the rain about 8 years ago. And as I pass by an exit I see a pickup coming down the entrance ramp next to me really fast, like recklessly fast. I think to myself I better get ahead of this guy so I don't have to deal with merging with him, so I put my foot on the gas. About 10 seconds later I look in my rear view mirror to see the pickup about 100 feet behind me spinning across all 4 lanes. Then a semi which was trying to swerve to avoid him collides and smashes him straight into the barrier as it turns fully sideways across the highway. Huge bang. Sound as the pickup basically disintegrated. I had to pull over at the next rest stop just to calm down. My uncle and stepfather were drinking late at night, watching TV while me and a few others were just chilling in the living room. I was 15 I think. There was some shouting outside on our street. We all went out on the porch to gawk and saw our neighbor, an old man, being dragged around on the asphalt by some young guy. My uncle with his drunken bravado strutted into the middle of it and he and the young man started to push each other. Then my uncle pulled out a switchblade and the guy ran into the old man's house. That's when I decided to go back inside and watch from a window with the phone in my hand. Sure enough, the dude came back out with a butcher knife. The two of them started to struggle. My stepfather jumped in to break it up, and he ended up getting stabbed in the back by the young dude. I called the police and we ended up in the hospital all night waiting to see if my stepfather would live. He did, with a punctured lung and a lot of recovery time. I was doing a semester abroad in London. At the time there were concerns about bombings on the underground trains. During our orientation one of our guides mentioned that if you ever heard a voice on the underground PA system, ask for Inspector Sands. That was code to alert the underground staff that there was some kind of emergency without panicking the riders. One night, after class, I stopped at a restaurant. It was a McDonald's. Sue me, and the cashier forgot my order, causing my meal to be delayed. Once I got my food and finished eating, I headed to the nearest tube station to board a train home, and heard, playing on repeat, "Will Inspector Sands report to the office?" or something similar. I then noticed that a horde of police cars was converging on the area. I turned right the FCK around and took a bus home. Turns out it wasn't a bombing. Someone had pushed someone else onto the tracks in front of a train. Still, I thought for half a second that a shitty McDonald's cashier might have saved me from getting blown up. When I was a kid, I was trick-or-treating with 3 of my friends. One friend and I looked back and saw that these notorious local bully older kids were following us. So we kind of tried to gesture whisper to our other 2 friends like, "Come on guys, let's GFTO. It's bully guy and his bully friends." Well, our 2 friends were too cool to be scared. So me and the one friend started walking much faster, putting a large distance between us and our friends the bullies. Our friends even called out something like, "Haha, where are you guys going?" Sure enough, the bullies suddenly ran up, beat up our 2 friends and stole their Halloween candy. I was a classic kid who followed classic kid rules. You see a gang of older bullies, you go away as fast as you can. I may not be cool, but at least I have candy. Front stage for Lamb of God, I think maybe 2012ish. Suddenly people started leaving before the next song. What I didn't realize at the time was I was in the middle of a world record attempt at the largest wall of death at a festival. I haven't noped any harder than that, I don't think. I was doing charity work in high school. Just outside of a smaller mountain city in Guatemala, Jalapa. We took one afternoon off to head into the city and check out the markets and whatnot. Riding around the city in the bed of pickup trucks, about 15 of us. Extremely common there, we noticed that there wasn't much activity and a lot of the shops were closed. A local who recognized our organization started yelling when we drove by and flagged us down. So we stopped. He was in the middle of setting up a roadblock and basically told us to get the FCK out of the city as fast as possible. Reason being, there was a big protest riot planned for that day against Canadian mining operations taking advantage of the surrounding regions. This is a small, almost third world, militaristic Central American country. Every single one of us was Canadian. We could have very easily become the perfect bargaining tool for these rebel groups. Needless to say, we got out of there as quick as humanly possible. Good guy local. I was at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado for a no show. I left the concert early to grab something out of my car. On the way, I passed a suspicious looking individual, who moments later fired off a shotgun into the air. I sprinted all the way to my car. And NBSP. It turns out this maniac was trying to kill one of the openers, Schoolboy Q. Nobody was hurt. And it barely even made the news. How could he have ever made it into the concert after firing the shotgun? Did he even think through his plan? Good thing dude was an idiot though. Because I like Schoolboy. Went home from college the summer before my senior year. Met an old crush of mine and she invited me to a party. I walked to the address and it was this horrible, broken down house in a bad part of town. Went inside and recognized most of the people there as old co-students from high school. Had a good time drinking and smoking with them. I was pretty straight-laced in high school. I couldn't find my crush. So I went exploring the house. Found her a few other people shooting up heroin in one of the rooms. I'm not a fan of being around intravenous drugs. So I immediately left. I was only one house away before 3 cop cars started coming toward the house. I casually sat down on the other house's stoop and lit a cigarette. Watched people in the party get arrested until the cops were all looking away. Walked away into the night. Edit. Heroin. The drug. Not heroin. The female protagonist. Raider 9 a preseason game. I got free tickets so I brought my girlfriend with me since she had never been to a football game. Game was at Candlestick Park, which is in the ghetto in SF. Game was rowdy from the start with fights breaking out all over the stadium. I made a point to not drink because I wanted to have my wits about me the whole time. It got so crazy that we left early, and as we were leaving, a bunch of cops and ambulances were headed towards the stadium. We got out of the city and my bros started texting me asking if I was okay cause there were shootings. Raider 9er. You need not say more. If anyone is curious, a lot of these stories involve what we call in the military a change in the baseline. Basically, if something is the same way every day and one day it's not at all. For example, an empty marketplace which is normally packed. Run. Run fast. Not me, but a friend of mine. I was with a guy who knew some pretty hardcore parties. So I went with him. We walked in and the first thing I notice in the house is a pile of cocaine on the table and a pistol on the bar. My friend told me we need to GTFO. We passed 3 police cruisers headed to the party on the way out. They busted the place right after we left. At least he's the type of partier to know when it's safe and when it's not. I was at a house party with a few friends, where pretty much everyone from our college year was invited. One guy, who was affectionately called One Drink Davey, had probably downed about 2 pints of Stella within the hour, and I personally knew he was just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Nevertheless, we all sat down to play Ring of Fire. That's when I saw it. His hand raised to his mouth and his eyes closed. I bolted for the door. Just as I make it past the doorframe I hear a familiar splash and everyone screaming. 15 minutes later. I thought I'd go back upstairs to assess the damage. Holy shit. It's everywhere. Not just Davies. Apparently he'd started a chain with the sympathy pukers and what I was seeing was about 5 people's worth of vomit all over poor Jane's mother's cream carpets. I've never been so glad to have been able to detect when someone's going to hurl. Growing up, whenever my brother was arguing with my mom and he started his next point with "you know what, mom?" I always knew that was the time to get out of the room. Little did you know. The rest went, "You know what, mom? You're right and I'm a really lucky and grateful son. I'm going to do the dishes so you don't have to." Was leaving a bush party with a friend. To do this we had to climb a really steep hill. Not too tough because there were little trees growing out of it to grasp. About halfway up we see flashlights and someone yelled "cops." Full stop. My friend and I turned around and went down. I saw 2 kids rolling down the hill hitting trees. By the time we got to the bottom I decided I should get the FCK out of there. But will not. Gave my friend a beer and he ran off. I lay down with my beer in some long grass and didn't move. They never found me and I heard them laughing, saying things like "haha. This tea is what I signed up for." Full stop. Eventually I fell asleep and I woke up hours later and walked home. In 2007 I was walking towards Grand Central Station and Nick with headphones in when suddenly I see a couple of people running towards me. And away from Grand Central. At first I don't think twice about it. But then more and more people are running. Down the sidewalks. In the streets. And they look scared. I take my headphones off and ask someone what's going on. They tell me there's been an explosion at Grand Central. I look up and see the smoke. My chest tightens and I turn and I start running. I just want to get as far away as possible. Finally, from a safe distance I get a cab and head uptown away from the explosion. It turned out to be a steam pipe explosion. The fears from 9/11 were still running high at this time and everyone had automatically assumed the worst. Luckily it wasn't that bad, although I think one person may have died during the event. But it was scary to be there. When things are exploding, it's okay to automatically assume the worst. I was spending 4 weeks in Italy as part of a high school program. Late into the night after partying and little we're in this park. It's summer in Italy and everyone's out and about. There was a festival going on at the time. Some guys I'm with start playing soccer. And soon a group of 5 or so Italian guys come talk to us. The girls on the sidelines. And we're talking with them about our trip. Things get undesirable quickly. First, the guys ask our age. We were high school students at the time. Juniors and seniors. So they said, if you're that young. We're that young. Then one of them gets on the phone. I was the only one in my group who could understand the language. And while I wasn't too fluent I could understand young girls in the park. Turn left and right. Very beautiful. Nice asses. So I'll look at my friends and translate this to them as we see 10 or so more Italian guys approaching us. We book it to the hotel. I was at a senior year high school bush party many years ago. A friend had supplied a keg and things were going well. Probably well over 150 people there. At some point in the night, some kids drove up in their dad's brand new Dodge Ram, got out and were trying to start some tea. As they were getting back in the truck, a beer bottle hits the windshield and cracks it. The kids start getting back out of the truck and are instantly ripped out by an angry mob. One of the kids managed to get out of the truck and had a big, heavy chain and started swinging it at people. He got taken out real quick by a beer bottle. Then someone picked up the chain and started whipping the truck. Everything smashable was smashed. This was some Lord of the Flies tea. As I was starting to leave, realizing that cops were certainly going to show up, someone jumps into the truck, drives it right into a giant bonfire, then hops out. I left a little faster after that. This was some insane tea for a bunch of 17-18-year-olds. My mom and sister were about to go eat at Twin Peaks in Waco, but they were afraid because there were dozens of bikers and a police van. So they just went home to eat sandwiches. Our house is about 7 minutes from the restaurant and shots were fired before they got home. In 1996 my ex and I were hanging out on Mifflin Street in Madison. We went to Madison every so often to just hang out, visit the shops, etc. Had no idea it was Mifflin Street block party day until we got there. But it was cool. Tons of people out. And then more people. And more people. We got out when we saw that one of the pillars where people hang band flyers, etc. had been lit on fire. Bonfires in the street. People throwing bottles and rocks at the firefighters who tried to put them out. A bunch of police and fire injuries that year. Currently studying abroad in London. The vote is today. Seeing how long I can live off tiny boxes of raisins before going outside. Edit. Kudos to those folks who got it. It was a joke referencing riots. People are passionate about the vote. The majority, 52%, voted leave. This morning will be interesting. Thanks for playing. Edit 2. She. After the bars one night we're at someone's house that I know through a friend of a friend. It's a pretty big after party. Everyone is playing drinking games, some folks are ripping a bong. And then I notice a baby in a car seat on the kitchen table. Still awake at like 3 AM and just being ignored. We peaced out after I saw that. Called the cops on the way home for a noise complaint so at least someone would do something about that damn baby. I was visiting Berlin with a buddy of mine during the 1st of May, not realizing that it is prime rioting time for the anarchists. Anyway. So we were strolling down the street to look for a particular store somebody recommended and could see the line of rioters in the distance with lines of riot police in front of them. We spent too long in the store because when we came out, the line had shifted and we were on the wrong side of the riot. We quickly went towards the police line and asked them, nicely, to let us through. Which they luckily did. The Vancouver Canucks lost in the Stanley Cup Finals. I was in a public bathroom at the mall. And could hear a guy in the stall next to me talking on the phone. He had a gangster accent, saying words like blood, and was saying on the phone, if he wants me, I'm in here. Taking a shitty. Send him. I'll FCK him up. I don't care. I'm wearing blue shoes in. The only issue was I was wearing blue shoes as well. I got out of that restroom so fast. Sunday evening, the 30th of August. 2005, I was sitting outside my house watching the first clouds of Hurricane Katrina passing over my house in Slidell, LA. My daughter called from where and the rest of my family had evacuated too, and begged me to leave before I died. I proceeded to get in my car and drive north. I was 19. Drunk. And trying to sneak into a bar with some of age friends. Ended up getting distracted and hanging out with a few peeps rolling on E. We're sitting in a courtyard downtown when we see this dude with dreads excitedly talking about his hometown of Buffalo, NY. Someone heard his claim that it was the best city in the world. And shouted, nah man. Vegas-T. Number 1. The Buffaloian thought it was funny and jokingly continued the argument. Nah buddy. Buffalo rocks. Man. The Vegas lover turned around. Took the 2 steps back towards the guy. Then decked him in the face. Buffalo man looked like Neville Longbottom when Hermione Petrificus totlist his ass. Fell flat on his back. Apparently there were several officers to witness the incident. Since within seconds there were 5 cops converging on the guy from all different directions. They got him on the ground and he got it way worse than the guy he sucker punched. Being drunk and underage. I panicked and sprinted away. Nobody followed. I was on a downtown B train in Manhattan. As we reached Grand Street, a fistfight that had been brewing became a reality. After Grand Street is the Manhattan Bridge, which takes a while. And then you're in Brooklyn, my destination. Destination or not, I wasn't going to be trapped in a subway car with 2 dudes trying to kill each other. Perhaps I am not as jaded and tough as real New Yorkers. But I got the hell off to wait for the next train. What was weird to me is how no one else did. And seemed either to try to tune it out or curious what might happen next. Well, whatever would or did, they'd have 6 or 7 trapped minutes to witness it. It was rush hour. I had to wait all of 40 seconds for the next train. People are weird.